Hi, this is Shane Davis. If there is one phrase to describe my mother, it is this. Remmette Davis was an elegant, gracious, and talented lady. She was very photogenic, and we have a good number of photographs taken of her throughout her life. As you can see by her pictures, Mum was very confident. Her confidence was combined with her wide-ranging talent to create artistically in many disciplines. The main photograph here is her icon, for this photo is immediately recognizable as Remmette Davis. Mum had a storied life. Had her parents been able to afford passage on the Titanic, she may never have been here. I may never have been here. However, her parents did survive their trip, bringing to Vancouver Mum and her brother in 1912. Mum was born in Hackney in 1904 and named Chrissy Kathleen Patience Brace. She adopted Canada, or, more accurately, Canada adopted her. She inherited her father's talent for painting. At the age of 17, she painted this watercolor. Shortly after, she painted this Indo-Saracenic palace, a style popular in India for most of the 19th century. Mum was extremely musical. She studied piano and achieved her ATCM in 1923. By 1928, she was giving recitals in Vancouver. Traveling to Los Angeles, she studied under Alberta Honus, who had also taught many very famous pianists. By 1930, Mum achieved her certificate for the piano teacher's course from Alberta Honus. Senor Honus added by hand, and is appointed an authorized exponent of my Master's School of Piano Playing and Virtuosity. Vancouver was a very different city in 1929 to what it is today. Certainly Mum was one of the leading lights in the field of music. Mum kept a scrapbook of many of the reports and articles of her performances. It was during these years that Mum adopted her professional name of Remmette, a name which stemmed from her grandfather and the musicians and professionals in the Remmette family. Mum advertised in various musical magazines as a concert pianist and teacher. She attended concerts of other musicians, taking portraits with her to have them autographed. In her spare time, she was a portrait artist. To me, she was an amazing portrait artist. It was about 1933 when she met Reginald Stanley Davis. Of course, she did his portrait. And she continued to do portraits for many decades, such as this one of her grandson, Mitchell. Mum often told me that the beauty of a curved line is the amount of straightness in it. I know that within her imagination, she saw the elegant simplicity in all forms. Not long after meeting Reginald Davis, the two were married in August of 1934. For me, the guest list is quite fascinating. Signatories to the marriage certificate were Mum's parents, Dad's father Frank, his sister Doris, and brother Laurie. Others include Agnes Brace and longtime friends the Melchers. Many stories could and should be told about these guests. Time does not permit here. From their Parker Street home in Vancouver, they moved to North Vancouver, first to East 12th Street, then to the Grand Boulevard. They were a very handsome couple. 4 children and 2 grand pianos. Mum's life was cast in stone. She loved all her children. She loved to play the piano. She loved her fur coat too. Through the years, she always dressed in style, with care and appropriate to her age. Mum is seen here with 3 of her children and her very long-time friend, Jessie Morrison. Next picture is with my sister Beverly and me. Here I am with Mum in a black and white photo. At that time, color photos were expensive, but hand-tinted photos soon became available. Later, color photos were the norm. Mum's musical talents and her charming personality opened doors for her. When in California, she was invited to Harold Lloyd's home. For us Northerners, it was exotic to be able to actually pick an orange from an orange tree. Life in the early post-war years continued to improve. Dad did well in his sash and door business. Mum and Dad dressed fashionably with their friends and relatives as seen here near the Burke's Clock in Vancouver. Mum's piano performances in Vancouver led to the creation of her radio program first broadcast on CKWX. Soon after, the Davis family moved to the Grant Boulevard. The post-war building boom benefited Dad's business, and thus he could afford this rather elegant home, a home made famous by Mum and her music. The entry was warm and inviting. The living room was large, befitting a family of 6. Note my grandfather's paintings on the walls. Through the years, many famous artists and guests dined with us in the dining room. One of my lasting memories here was dining with Jacques Singer, the conductor of the Vancouver Symphony. He was conducting with his fork at the table as Dad played a recording of the Vancouver Symphony. As you can see, the living room was large enough to comfortably accommodate 2 grand pianos. However, in the early years of Mum's program, we had just 1 piano. Dad announced, Mum played. Now on CJOR, Stairway to Stardom was becoming famous. In the recording room, Dad recorded Mum's playing. He also recorded his comments. When all was finalized, Dad would assemble comments and piano selections into the program. Initially, programs were on 16-inch diameter discs, but in later years, all programs were created on tape. Once finished, the whole family would travel by car into Vancouver to deliver the programs to the radio station. As a result of Mum's program, Stairway to Stardom, we had a continuous stream of famous people and students coming to audition for the various classes of competition. When winners were decided, their prizes were often presented by world-famous artists such as Lily Pons. Another artist who came to visit was the world-renowned pianist Witold Malkaczynski. As usual, the family gathered for another special dinner prepared by Mum. Malkaczynski was kind enough to autograph his dinner napkin. This napkin is yet another treasured item in Mum's legacy. It was always a special occasion in the Davis home when the annual championship was to be awarded. Here, in part, is the final broadcast for the 1952 season as introduced by my father, Remmette Davis.
Good evening, friends. And as we welcome you to the final broadcast of this season, I should like to describe the scene here at Halftones tonight. This has been a memorable weekend for us and for our guests too. For having such a pianist as William Capell at home as a friend and not a guest gives you a very far-reaching picture of music. Tonight, of course, we announce our 1952 champion pianist, who is at present sitting with William Capell near the piano. While scattered in order through our living room, Mayor Frank Goldsworthy, Stanley Bly, the new champion's parents, Mrs. Goldsworthy, the new champion's teacher, 4 Davis children, with Remette's mother, Mrs. Brace. As announced last Sunday, tonight we have 2 awards to make. The first being the Remmette Davis check for $50 to the winner of the 2 piano class, and the second, Remette's $100 check to the new 1952 champion. Now here are the names of our past champion pianists. 1949, Helen Vass. 1950, Joanne Fowler. 1951, Pearl MacDonald. And 1952, the youngest of them all, is 12-year-old Valerie Lloyd of Vancouver. Valerie was the young lady who played the first movement of Mozart's Concerto in A major in the 2 piano class last January the 6th. And this also gives her first place in this group to receive both awards tonight. And here is Mayor Goldsworthy with Valerie Lloyd to receive the championship. Mayor Frank Goldsworthy.
Thanks very much, Reg. This is indeed a real thrill for us to be here with you this evening and to share with you the pleasure of presenting this award to Valerie Lloyd for her outstanding accomplishments. But before so doing, may I say how thrilled we are and how pleased we are on the North Shore for your very splendid programs. The work that you have done for the radio audience and for we on the North Shore, we are deeply appreciated. Valerie, would it be asking too much if I asked you to play your number again so the radio audience may hear you?
You have just heard our new 1952 champion pianist Valerie Lloyd of 3648 West 15th Avenue in Vancouver, playing the Mozart Piano Concerto in A major, with the orchestral accompaniment played on the Bechstein Grand. And here is Mayor Goldsworthy to complete the award.
Valerie, I'm sure that our radio audience will agree that yours is an outstanding number, and I present you this check as your award for your past efforts.
Thank you, Mayor Goldsworthy. It has been a wonderful experience to me, being chosen the 1952 champion pianist on Stairway to Stardom, and to receive the Remmette Davis Award. I shall certainly study hard to be back with you all next year.
And now it's time for your second reward, Valerie, the $50 check for winning the 2 piano class. And you are now about to become the most envied young pianist in town tonight, because I know of no greater honor for you now than to have a famous pianist like William Capell make this presentation. William Capell.
Thanks, Reg. I have the pleasure to present you with this check, which is your award for playing so beautifully the Mozart Concerto in A major, which I enjoyed very much listening to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Capell. It was a pleasure and a privilege.
You seem more nervous over speaking than you do over playing. Your playing is completely secure and with a wonderful finger technique, which I enjoyed very much and without which one cannot play Mozart. You've had excellent training. This was very apparent, and I wish you the best of luck in your studies, and it is very obvious that you practice seriously and with very good intent and knowledge. My congratulations to you.
Thank you, Mr. Capell. This is the most thrilling thing that ever happened to me in music, being 1952 champion, winning the concerto class, and now having you present me with the second Remmette Davis Award. I've enjoyed your playing tonight so much, and would like to express the thanks of all the young pianists in BC for the inspiration you give us.
And now, Valerie, will you play us a short number as a solo that will complete our musical picture of your talent?
Yes, Mr. Davis. I would like to play the Haydn Rondo in D major.
was our new 1952 champion pianist, 12-year-old Valerie Lloyd, who is a pupil of Glenn Geary of Vancouver. And William, could you tell the students listening in tonight, in just one word, the best way to reach the top in piano?
Practicing.
Thanks, an invaluable lesson. And if those of you who heard William Capell at the auditorium Thursday could have listened tonight after dinner as he played The Great Gate of Kiev from Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition, you will realize he is feeling much better. We thank William Capell and Mayor Goldsworthy for being with us tonight. And here are this season's highlights. The 5 scholarships of this series were the personal gift of Remmette Davis and were won as follows. $50 under 15 class, Sharon Stevens. $50 over 15 class, Barbara Klink. $50 under 18, Paul Fraser. $50 two piano class, Valerie Lloyd. The $100 championship award, Valerie Lloyd. Our panel of judges this year comprised Remmette Davis, Stanley Bly, and John Avison. All these programs were produced by Reg Davis and originated at Halftones in North Vancouver, and the clarity of the sound projection was made possible by our sound technician, Jack Gordon. Our special thanks to Stanley Bly, music editor of the Vancouver Sun, for the publicity he has given to these young pianists, and to Dick D. Specker of the Vancouver Province for his radio column. And now this is Reg,
and Remmette,
wishing you all a goodbye till October.
History has a way of shaping the future. Alas, the 1952 season finale is the only recorded program of Stairway to Stardom to survive these many years. And for me, it is the definitive program, one which I remember best. Stairway to Stardom did continue into its 12th year, retaining its great popularity with the Vancouver audience. Through the early years, Dick D. Specker panned Stairway to Stardom as being amateurish. Many letters were sent to him criticizing his attitude. He published this letter, which reads in part as, "When I read your blunt criticism of Remmette and Reg Davis, I was surprised and set back with indignation at so rash an opinion." In later years, Dick D. Specker changed his tune. In his column, he writes in part, "The popular Stairway to Stardom program begins its 12th season. Remmette and Reg Davis are the only individuals left in Canada who are attempting to encourage classical talent." Another listener's letter states, "In January you said Stairway to Stardom is the best public service program on the air. It still is, and credit should be given where credit is due." Stairway to Stardom continued into its 12th year. The format was broadened to include other instruments and guests from the United States. Famous artists continued to visit us, such as Sylvia and Benno Rabinoff, the highly acclaimed piano-violin duo. Sylvia sent this very special thank you letter. Time marches on. The Davis family moved to Whitecliff, west of Horseshoe Bay. It was an elegant home with a living room designed for recording music. Both concert grands were nose to nose. The balance of the home was quite spectacular. But as I say, time marches on. The Davis children were growing up, leaving home and or going to university. Mom had more free time to pursue her paintings. Mom was an artist. Her subjects were wide-ranging. She created in oils, watercolors, Conte crayon, pastels, and charcoal, etc. Let's enjoy her creations while listening to her play. We have a defining interlude of Mom at her artistic pinnacle. It was circa 1958 when Mum and Dad, along with my dear brother Reggie, went on a trip to Jamaica in the Rolls-Royce. Reggie describes their journey.
We were given a map, a road map,
Okay.
and it showed along the southern border of Canada, and it showed the United States and Jamaica on this map. But on this map, the route was outlined in a broad red line marking the route that we would follow.
Yes.
And it went down the west coast of United States through Washington, Oregon, California, and then we turned to go east across the United States. This trip, I think it was the agency who gave us this map. They said it would take 7 days, but the Rolls-Royce was driven so fast that we did it in 1 day less than the prescribed length of time. Well, we stopped to see the Grand Canyon, and close by there was the Carlsbad Caverns, where the bats live. And that was quite an interesting trip through the caverns. It was, let me see, there was Tennessee and Mississippi and Arkansas, and I forget which one where we took a trip into the Everglades, and on a quest for crocodiles. And we did see some crocodiles, and flew over to Jamaica, yes.
Okay.
And in Jamaica, when we landed, it was immediately hot. And I remember an old shoemaker sitting beside the road. He had a sewing machine set up on the sidewalk, and he was repairing shoes for people.
Mum eventually took some of her sketches from Jamaica and created paintings or chalk renderings. The Davis family still proudly displays them. Did Mum enjoy herself in Jamaica?
Well, I think we did, in that we did take a fishing trip.
Oh, did you?
With a guide,
Uh-huh.
and he took us out in the ocean around Jamaica.
Mum loved to travel. It was in 1969 when she traveled through several countries in Europe. Of course, she took her sketchbook. Here are a few of her sketches and her piano accompaniment. When I was in Crete during early 1969, I photographed the Agia Galini village waterfront. Both Mum and I painted our impressions of the small boat. Mum's is more realistic, and she added the seagull. Mine is more impressionistic, having used just 3 colors on my palette and applied them with only a putty knife. On a field trip along the Dollarton Highway, both Mum and I took our sketch pads. We stopped on the beach and admired this rather rustic cottage. It was reportedly that of the author Malcolm Lowry. Through her later years, Mum continued to sketch and paint. Obviously, she had an eye for proportion, balance, and composition. It was during these years she created some of her most sensitive works. Mum loved color. Color was expressed on paper, on cloth, on canvas. Her paint box was filled with paintbrushes, rags, tools, thinners, cleaners, etc., not to mention the myriad of tubes of paint. Mum even painted this abstract picture, which could be hung in all different positions. It was an echo of her father's painting of the same intent. In Mum's spare time, she was an active member in the Vancouver Women's Musical Club. Mum never gave up her long friendship with Jessie Morrison. I asked my dear sister Beverly to recall Mum's and Jessie's history. Tell me about Jessie, Beverly.
Well, Mom met Jessie, first of all, she taught her, and they became friends, and I think Jessie adored Mom so much. She would do anything for her, and we would go up to her camp, we would go to her home, there would be festive occasions, and we would go there for a special dinner. Christmas time, Jessie would give us these little rosebud chocolates because her husband worked for Blue Ribbon. And but I would say of all the friends she had that Jessie was the closest friend she ever had.
Jessie developed her own style of painting. Jessie would assign color, size, shape, and intensity to a musical composition. It was her unique expression. Throughout our lives, Jessie has been kind and friendly to all of us. She even asked me to design her new cottage at Gibson's Landing. With the wide range of photographs of Mum, we can see multiple changes. For me, it is intriguing how she saw herself. One indication is as to how she signed her paintings, all the way from C.R. Brace, Remmette Brace, Remmette, C.R.D., C.D., to just plain R. For Mum, her paintings were finished, but she was always creating and never finished. Mum's life was full. She worked hard. She raised her family. She performed publicly, privately, and through her radio program. She was musical. She was artistic. She was gentle. She was loving. But above all, she was Remmette. In part 2 of Remmette Davis, A Tribute, we shall fast forward many decades to the present. How is Remmette Davis remembered? How is Stairway to Stardom remembered? Have there been any lasting influences resulting from Mum's creativity? I asked my dear brother for his impressions of Mum. What are your impressions of Mum?
Mum? Mum was a very gracious lady. She was amongst the most honorable persons in my life. You know, I've not forgotten her. She's still hanging around there in my mind. For me, she had a big interest in my life and in making me follow the so-called right direction and not getting sidetracked into all these things that kids get sidetracked into nowadays, like drugs and oh, well, you know what all those things are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she did reflect some of her mom's, that's our grandmother, she did reflect some of those qualities. And our grandmother, and I remember this very distinctly, she was the president of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. And
In Vancouver.
She frowned on alcohol.
I asked my dear sister the same question.
Beverly, what are your remembrances of Mom?
Well, what I remember about Mum is the gentleness that she had with her family, with us. She never would raise her voice, although we do remember what she would say, good God and stuff and things like that, but she didn't ever swear. You never found her looking sloppy. She wasn't like the modern day housewife that would go around at home looking untidy. She always looked lovely and took great pride in herself that way. She would always point out when we would go for a drive all the beauty of nature. Look at the sunset, look at the clouds, look at the mountains. And it gave us a great awareness whenever we would go out on a family outing. Dad would say, which way would you like to go? And my answer was always by the sea. And this love of looking around to see the beauty of nature was very much nurtured by Mom.
What else do you remember about Mom, Beverly?
Well, I know that when she was young, she did some dancing and singing. She played the violin, the piano, and she also studied the organ in Victoria with Frederick Chubb. And these people were very upset when she one day decided that she was going to make the piano her instrument. And she did have several degrees through the Royal Conservatory of England. And I know that in her composition, she got the highest mark ever given. She was very beautiful when she was young, extraordinarily beautiful.
Then I asked my dear brother about his memories of Stairway to Stardom. Here is how he described it.
Just wondering, do you remember anything about Mom's program, Stairway to Stardom?
I remember some things.
What are your greatest memories, or your strongest memories?
Well, I think the highlights of that program were the fact that they took students and had a competition with competing students.
What do you remember of Stanley Bly?
Stanley Bly, he was the music critic for the Vancouver Sun, because he would come over to our house. He would, and he would do the judging of those students that I mentioned, along with other musicians.
Well, he was instrumental in getting some of the famous musicians that came to Vancouver to come to our house and have dinner.
Oh, yes.
And also be judges on the Stairway to Stardom competition for the students.
Mm-hmm. Well, having you give me all those names, I know they were famous artists. I can see our mum being very interested in those people.
My sister Beverly's comments are quite enlightening. Let's listen.
Beverly, what do you remember of Mum's program?
Well, I remember there were 4 of us children in the family at home. And of course, what do you do with 4 children when a program is being either recorded or prepared? So we had to be quiet. And we also, though, met the people, the students that would compete on this program. We met their teachers. And we also met the judges that would come to the house. And it was always a very interesting time. I don't think we were the ordinary children that got bored. We were always very interested in the music, in the people, and what was trying to be accomplished. So we had an interesting life that way with Mom and Dad, in that we were always challenged culturally, musically, intellectually, and artistically. And I remember Mom practicing and practicing for many hours, and then Dad would record this music, and he had a little studio with the speakers in the living room, and she had the microphone, and he would record this as she would play. But we used to have great fun. We met the conductors and the music critic of the Vancouver Sun and the Stanley Bly.
Do you remember any of the visiting artists that came for dinner?
We also met William Capel, the young American pianist, and he came to our home and played our piano, and I had to play for him very unwillingly because I thought, who am I to play for this very outstanding pianist? And then we had, Gieseking came to our home. He was the one that later was in a train accident, and it really affected his brain.
Do you remember Mel Kaczynski?
I remember Mel Kaczynski, but the interesting thing about meeting these great pianists or conductors was that they were all very humble people. They weren't, I'm so good. They would come and sit in the living room, sit on the floor with us, and the dog would be there, and they were just very natural, wonderful people. So it was a marvelous experience for our family.
1952 was quite the memorable year. Stairway to Stardom did have a great influence in the world of music. The 12-year-old 1952 championship winner Valerie Lloyd went on to become quite an amazing pianist and teacher in Canada and the United States. Valerie had her own radio program, her own television series. She released many CDs. She has been described as the world's most listened to pianist. After locating Valerie Lloyd through the internet, she was kind enough to relate her memories and comments. Here, in part, are a few of her observations.
Hello, Shane. This is Valerie Lloyd Watt speaking, and I'm going to talk with you for a few minutes about my memories of the lovely experience I had interacting with your parents, Remmette and Reg Davis, on their program, Stairway to Stardom. In that year of 1951, I was a guest on your mother's radio program, and while she played every week, she also had a guest each week to play something on the program as well. And then to sweeten the pot, so to speak, your parents made it rather a little bit of a competition, and there was a I was thrilled beyond words. But I was certainly delighted to be, I think, called the grand champion of that year, if memory serves. And I remember going with my parents and my teacher, Glenn Geary, to West Vancouver to play on the program. And I think my piece was the first movement of Mozart's Concerto in A major, Koschel 488. And my dear piano teacher, Glenn Geary, played the second piano accompaniment for me. I remember the house rather dimly because it was quite a while ago, and I was rather overwhelmed with the whole procedure. I was only 12 after all. And my impression was of this enormous, beautiful house with lots of natural wood and huge, I don't know if they were floor-to-ceiling windows or not, but they seemed immense to me. And a lovely piano, and I think there were 2 pianos there. I remember Reg Davis being very tall, and the word I would use today would be patrician. He seemed very handsome and rather quiet, a wonderfully resonant voice, I recall. I remember thinking he was a terrific announcer over the radio. So when I went to receive the prize presented by Remmette to me, and your father was there, and William Capel was also there. In fact, I think he actually made the presentation, and he said a few words to me. He was under 30 years old at the time, so it wasn't all that long before he died, and he was a very handsome, very nice young man who played the piano beautifully, of course, and so I was thrilled that he would even deign to speak to 12-year-old me, that he was certainly very kind and very encouraging to me. My memories of Remmette are strong, although they are not numerous. I remember her seeming tall and slender, very beautiful and aristocratic, although I'm not sure that at age 12 I have the word aristocratic in my vocabulary. But I remember being sort of dazzled by her long, dark dress that she had on, and her hair was dark, and she sat and played a piece for us to enjoy when we came to her home. And my recollection is that she played the first movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. She was very kind, very courteous to my parents and my teacher, and to me. All of us, my teacher and my parents included, of course, came from rather modest backgrounds. So I think we were all somewhat impressed and dazzled with the whole situation. I think it was tremendously generous and kind of Reg and Remmette Davis to create the interest in the program by having the guests. Of course, it was lovely to hear Remmette played. As an adult and a professional musician, I have a very much greater appreciation of how much effort, organization, and dedication it took on both their parts to make that program happen week after week. It was a tremendous accomplishment, and you, as their son, Shane, have every reason to be very, very proud of that. How lovely it would be if it were still going on now, to encourage young students to have an opportunity to play on a program like that, which was lovely and the best of its kind at the time, since television and various other electronic means were not available then. And Reg was, in fact, a real pioneer in recording and playing Remmette's work every week on the radio. With regard to the competition, there is the attitude that it is a learning experience. It's lovely to do your very best. It's a goal to work towards, and it gives you a chance to see how your efforts are realized when you play in a heightened awareness situation, such as a performance.
I found it quite amazing to take a step back in time and to talk with Valerie Lloyd. Also to know that her life was shaped, in part, by Stairway to Stardom. I must say thank you very much, Valerie, for your contribution to Remmette Davis, a tribute.
All the very best to you, and I'm wishing you such good thoughts for your lovely project. Thank you, Shane. Bye-bye for now.
Valerie Lloyd had an enviable career in music. My dear sister Beverly also had a successful career teaching piano here in the Cowichan Valley. Once she retired, Beverly has become a composer with her own unique style. But first, she will explain about her piano.
Beverly, tell me about the piano.
This was Mom's last piano that she had when she lived in the apartment in West Vancouver. It's over 100 years old. It's a Mason Hamlin. It's rosewood. And I've had it now for 42 years. And I've done most of my teaching on this piano. It has a very lovely sound. I did most of my musical training with Mom. I started when I was 6 with one of her students whom she absolutely adored, or this person, Jessie, absolutely adored her. But then Mom took over, and I studied and got my degree with her with just a little help at the end from Marshall Sumner, another pianist. But all of the written work and so on I learned with Mom. Since I retired from teaching, I started to compose. I'll play you one of my compositions. This one is called Remembrances.
Thank you, Beverly, for performing one of your many recent compositions. You have your own unique style of composing. On reflection, my dear mother, Remmette Davis, made a very notable difference to the world of music in Vancouver. She made a very noticeable difference to the lives of her family and friends. Was Stairway to Stardom actually a stairway to stardom? I think history shows it was. Valerie Lloyd Watts attained great success. Daughter Beverly is becoming a local success. I am sure that Mum would be proud of both of you. Many of the contestants on Stairway to Stardom have had notable careers in music, both here and abroad. I think Remmette Davis left the world a better place. Thank you, Mum.